The Guild is Maximum Lawyers' community of legal entrepreneurs who are taking their businesses and lives to the next level. As a Guild member, you'll build relationships, be held accountable, and learn strategies specifically designed to get you unstuck and accelerate your plan for growth. Members are also granted exclusive access to masterminds hosted around the country. Our next event is coming up, and we're heading to Scottsdale, Arizona. There's something truly magical about the power of these in-person connections where real-time breakthroughs happen. Picture this. You're surrounded by like-minded law firm owners tackling your business and mindset challenges together. The energy is electric, the insights are transformative, and the results are game-changing. Investing in yourself is the best decision you'll ever make. The knowledge, strategies, and breakthroughs you'll gain are priceless assets that will supercharge your practice and propel you forward. Join the Guild and secure your ticket to Scottsdale at the best possible price by visiting maxlawevents.com.
Welcome to the podcast edition of Maximum Growth Live, the #1 program for lawyers who want to grow their practices. Each week, our hosts, Seth Price and Jay Ruane, tackle the fundamental questions about how to grow the profit and profitability of your law firm. To watch the program live, submit your questions, and hear the latest episode, tune in every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Facebook for our live show. Maximum Growth Live is a production of Maximum Lawyer Media.
Hello, and welcome to Maximum Growth Live. My name is Jay Ruane. I am your host. I am the CEO of FirmFlex, which is social media marketing for lawyers, as well as the managing partner of Ruane Attorneys in Connecticut. And with me, as always, is my good friend down in DC, the CEO of BluShark Digital, which is an SEO firm for lawyers, as well as Price Benowitz, managing partner. Seth, there he is over there. How you doing today, Seth?
Doing well. We live in interesting times, Jay. We live in interesting times.
We are. We're still sort of reeling from a couple days ago from that debate debacle, and we were talking about it before we came on air. We're not going to bore you guys with our perspective on it, but something else happened this week, Seth. I want to talk to you a little bit about it because we talked about it on the Tuesday show. I'm having some trouble with this Google Local Services, and I want to explain what happened because for many of our viewers and listeners out there, this could be something that happens to them. So, as you know, I got in early. Back in August, as soon as they opened it up for lawyers, I said, "Hey, let me get my stuff in." Was on top of it. It took me a while to go through the background check and all that stuff, and then we're cranking. We're getting leads. They're converting. I'm loving it. Everything's great. And then about 5 days ago, silence. And I'm like, boy, that's strange. What happened there? So I try to log into the dashboard to see what's going on. On my phone, I'm logging in just fine. There's just no new leads. So I'm like, something doesn't feel right. There's something going on. So I try to log in on desktop. And when I try to log in on desktop, I get kicked back out to the verification stage. I'm like, whoa, I've passed verification here.
And that was not an easy thing, right?
No, it took a while.
For ourselves and all our clients, getting people through. You're lucky you got through early. It takes a lot of elbow grease to get yourself through.
Yeah, exactly. And I jumped through all the hoops. I've got a lot of lawyers. I know you've got a lot of lawyers. I mean, it's one thing if you're just a solo, right? It's just you. A lot more riding on it if you're just a solo. But, I had to go through. I've got lawyers in different states. I have to figure all that stuff out. So I'm like, okay, I got to get on the phone with them because it's something doesn't make sense. So I call them up. I get told, hey, the guy you need to talk to, he's left for the day, which blows my mind that there's maybe one guy for me to talk to. So they're like, so we see some notes here in the file. By the way, you told us in 2005 not to call you for anything. So you're on our do not call list. Do you want to take that off? So then I have to go through this whole rigmarole of getting off a do not call list for Google. I don't remember ever signing up for that. I get calls from their vendors all the time. The people who try to juice your pay-per-click campaign. So I don't get it. And so they're like, okay, fine, leave him a message. He'll call you back. I get nothing. 24 hours pass. I'm like, I got to get on the phone with these people. I don't know what's going on. Sure enough, I get on the phone. They're like, oh, we were just sending you an email. The person you need to talk to has left for the day again. But he emailed you. Check your email. I check my email, and there's an email from him saying, yes, we see that you made it through all the steps. However, we were unable to validate any of the law licenses of any of your lawyers because we looked on this website and none of you guys are on this website. And I look, and the website they're pointing to me is a bar association website. It's not the state of Connecticut. It's not the licensing authority in the state of Connecticut. It has nothing to do. It's a fraternal organization. I mean,
And
granted, it's a
right.
big organization in
And
our
that
state.
you are summing up in a nutshell the utter frustration. With COVID, GMB support shut down. Now it's on life support. They're doing this. This is clearly a money grab, right? Lawyers already are verified by the bar. Like this is not the same thing as locksmiths or home improvements where there's like a bunch of rogue people out there. And the fact that you're seeing this shows you how rinky dink it is. Google, which controls all of our business lives to a certain extent, is basically does not even understand what is real and what is voluntary. And it's utterly frustrating. We've seen it over and over. People that should be in aren't in yet. The background check kicking things back for nonsensical reasons. The background checks in general are a pain, but the idea that they're doing this in mass and are giving people an unfair advantage who get in early. I mean, again, it's not going to make or break anybody. It's 4 or 5 extra cases you got. God bless you. But that being said, it is a process. And look, at some point, this is the thing. Google will have an antitrust issue. There's really, and that the issue has been under Trump, that's not going to be there. And under Obama, it was all Google money supporting, Obama. All they have to do is what their own old motto used to be, which is don't do any evil, right?
Right.
And that when you're doing this and you're making people jump through absurd hoops, it's just completely infuriating. And when you know full well that what you're trying to do is get yourself in position to take more advertising dollars per search, it's that much more frustrating.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that a couple of days ago, before I ran into this problem, it's like my year of problems with Google services, right? The only thing that seems to work without a problem is pay-per-click, where I'm giving them, $35,000 a month in pay-per-click. That works swimmingly, right? That's no problem. But it's interesting. I ran some searches for practice areas where I'm not advertising in local services, and I saw one law firm have all 3 slots. And I'm thinking, wow, that's kind of a bold move. At least with pay-per-click, like you got one slot and maybe somebody else gets the other. But for this local services, the way they have it set up right
Well,
now,
it's clunky and it's not.
yeah,
It'll get there. Google, they'll spend the money to get it there, but living through it, not a lot of fun. But I think people just put in perspective that those that got in, they're getting a handful of cases. It's awesome, happy for them, but it's not going to make or break your year. You'll get in. Google has the incentive because remember, once they get everybody in, that's then a second stream of revenue beyond pay-per-click for them in the legal space. And that's what they're trying to do. Like everything they've done is trying to get people not to leave their screen, meaning whether it's the GMB, now it's preferred ads. They're playing hardball, and the lead gen people, getting squeezed out.
they definitely are. And that brings me up to a good topic and something that I want you to think about so we can talk about it next Tuesday. Because I think it's something that we all have to sort of wrap our heads around. Now, our competitors aren't necessarily the law firm down the street. Now, our competitor is Google. And that's really who we're competing with because they own the real estate.
You see it in the hotel space, right? That the hotel, rather than going directly to the hotel, you now have all these different third parties. And then Google is basically putting people up there in a marketplace where they're getting cuts. It is unbelievable. So yes, we have that. And then, if you want to really have your head hurt, you have the influx of outside money into states like Arizona and Utah, and possibly furthers to come like California, that is going to be an additional front. So it is never boring in our game. And that I think staying alert, awake, and continuing to be able to pivot, very, very important.
All right, awesome. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually tee up our interview because we've got a great one today. Seth, tell us who we have with us today and a little bit about some background so our viewers can be ready to go.
Sure. Sean Domnick, awesome lawyer, known him for years. He put together, not only is he secretary of AAJ and will, God willing, someday be president in a couple of years, but he has put together a really powerhouse firm in the Palm Beach area with three dynamic partners. And what I'm excited to hear about today is how he pulled that off. They had three people who were each rock stars in their own right, and were able to bring them together to create something where I believe we're going to find out that the actual creation is much greater than the sum of each of those guys individually. So excited. Let's get Sean brought in so we can maximize our time with him.
Awesome. Let's do that. So we'll go right to our sponsors. Couple quick messages. I'll bring up Sean, and then we'll be able to take it from there. So hang tight, folks. We'll be right back with this edition of the Maximum Growth Live interview.
You're listening to Maximum Growth Live from Maximum Lawyer Media. We'll be right back after this short break.
Do you want to get into social media marketing? Unsure of where to begin? The Firm Flex DIY plan was created for small firm and solo lawyers who want to start social media marketing for their firm but can't commit to the large budgets many agencies charge. In just 5 minutes a day, with the help of the Firm Flex coaches, you get daily ideas, weekly themes, hashtags, and stock images you can use to post on social media and market your firm. With a private and vibrant Facebook group you can always turn to, the Firm Flex DIY plan gives you the ultimate control over your marketing. By using the Firm Flex DIY program, as well as our weekly coaching and industry-leading hacks, you can set your social media up for success, all for around $3 a day. Try it today at getfirmflex.com/DIY.
In this world today, if you want to grow your business, you want to grow your firm, you want to take on more cases and make a bigger impact, you have to have a digital blueprint. Statistically, throughout the time that we've been working with BluShark Digital, our law firm, the Atlanta Divorce Law Group, grew over 1,400%.
Seth and his team have years of experience in this area.
BluShark is truly a part of the firm, so I don't consider BluShark any different than the employees in my office.
I know I can trust their input and their advice because they truly care about the people that they work with and just want to see you succeed.
Sean, great to have you here. Not only is Sean one of my favorite lawyers, AAJ leadership, future president of AAJ, but the reason we wanted you here today, Sean, was we wanted to talk to you about how you pulled off what I think is just incredible, where you took three amazing talents in your region and brought them together to create one powerhouse firm.
Seth, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. Trying to merge together two existing firms is actually harder than starting something from scratch. And looking forward to talking to you about it because I've done both in my career.
Well, let's start with that because it's pretty cool what you've created, what you have right now. I'm sure your other earlier formations were very fulfilling, but for a lot of our listeners, they're sitting there, many solos, maybe with a partner. But how did three distinct personalities, bringing that together is not nothing, especially when they're playing at the level that you guys play at. Walk me through. Was this did you do this consciously? Was this an opportunity that fell in your lap? How did you go about creating Domnick, Cunningham, and Whalen?
Well, all three of us had known each other for many years and had talked about the ability to work together over time, but the moment just had never been right. And finally, that opportunity came. And, we knew each other, we knew each other's work ethic, we knew each other's reputation, we knew each other's ethics, which is so important. We knew each other's priorities and our commitment. For example, one of the important things was that we were all committed to organizations like AAJ and FJA because those things take a lot of time and a lot of resources. So if everybody's not on the same page with fundamental things like that, then you really can't move forward. So the first thing is to sit down and have a discussion about what are your goals, what are your hopes, what are your dreams, what do you want to accomplish as you go forward over the next phase of what your legal career is. So we sat down and probably had 3 or 4 conversations that were really these general conversations about um, what it was that we were looking to get out of the law, what we were looking to get out of a practice, individually, why it is that we wanted to work together, what was it that was motivating each of us to take this step. So we had those types of conversations at the very beginning.
What, each of you guys are known as great practitioners, trial lawyers in your own right. How did you decide how to divide up all that other work, which has to go on, and make sure that nothing went without, a partner overseeing it?
Well, each of us have different strengths and each of us have different weaknesses. And so it was a matter of identifying people's different strengths and different weaknesses and then sort of assigning that area of responsibility to that person. And then the other thing that we did that was so important is that we're about a 10 lawyer firm, is that we hired a person that we all had great confidence in to be our strategic planner and help us make sure that we were doing the things that we needed to do in order to move forward, and making sure that we had a structure that we needed to have, making sure that we created a firm ethos that everybody from the person that when you walk in the door, all through all of the staff and through all of the lawyers, that we all shared that same commitment that was there. So it was really a lot of discussion about those types of concepts that then, okay, now how are we going to put this into reality and act off of it?
Did you have an outside consultant, or is this an in-house person who worked on the strategic planning with you?
That was in-house on the strategic planning. What we did at the beginning on the outside consultant phase is, we're all friends, but this is business. And where lawyers get themselves in trouble on business when they're working with friends is to forget that there's the business side of it, and that you just blindly think that everything is going to work out. That's how we end up with some of these terrible breakups that happen, where people on the front end aren't planning the business side of it. So what's the first thing that you want to do, to me, in that circumstance, once you decide that you have this philosophy that works together, personalities that mesh, and all of those sort of fundamentals that you have to have before you move to the next step? Then what we did was we hired an outside consultant to look at the last, I think it was, we did 5 years of firm receipts for each one of the firms. And what we wanted to do was confirm that everybody was carrying their own weight, that the cost structure was relatively the same, that is, of running the firm, and then enable us to sit down and talk about where there were differences and how it was that we were going to handle them. So the outside consultant that we used was more of a financial outside consultant, but somebody that was experienced in law firm practitioner, to make sure that the numbers matched up to what we thought they were. Because a lot of times lawyers think that something is happening, and it may not be happening, because there's no class that we go to in law school that says, here's how to run a business. So it's a lot of trial and error. And when you go to work at a big firm, nobody's sitting there trying to teach you how to run the business. So we learn by our mistakes often, or hopefully by others' mistakes. And so we spent a lot of time on making sure that the financial aspect of what it was that we were all bringing matched up to the expectations and hopes that we had.
Right now you're thought of as a national powerhouse as a firm. What are the things that, as you look back, you came together and, right now it looks pretty good looking from the outside. What are the things you wish you knew then? You talked about mistakes. What are the things that our listeners should probably, if they are thinking about putting together a firm and bringing people together, what are the things you wish you knew then that you now know?
We've been fortunate because it seems to have gone with the way that we had hoped that it would go. And I think that that's a testament to the time and energy and effort that we put in before we decided to sign off on a partnership agreement. And the other aspect of it was, of course, hiring people to sit down with us who are experts in creating a partnership agreement. And one of the hardest things that everybody deals with is, how is compensation going to work? Are you going to eat what you kill? Are you going to just throw everything into a pot and share it? Some modification of that. So, and different things work for different people. So you have to figure that out. And then you have to make sure that you have a document that reflects exactly that. So we spent time doing that. And so I think that because we spent so much time on the front end in preparing to come together, that it wasn't just let's show up Monday morning and hang out a shingle, that we haven't had a lot of surprises or that moment, man, I didn't think about that, or that type of thing that was there.
Sean, they could be small things. I'm not, obviously you guys have, hit it. You good culture, good business model. But were there any things that, like, you can plan all you want, but there are things like, this is one of those things that, should seem obvious, but it wasn't. Again, it wasn't even smaller items. Just curious to see what type of takeaways we can get for people.
Sure. Gosh, like I said, I think that the things that you look at is making sure that you have the right people in the right place, and that I think that one of the hard parts is you have people that are working for you, and you want to give them an opportunity to move forward. But we end up in the Peter principle, where you have somebody who is great at one level, great at the next level, and then you promote them to a level where they're no longer performing well, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is a lousy employee. No, they're not a lousy employee. They're a great employee. We just didn't put them in a position to succeed. And so I think that what I learned is you really have to put people in a position to exceed, and then empower them to succeed. But I think I can talk about the things that you don't know from a business point of view, but all of us had businesses before. This was not any of our first come to law firms. And so like I said, the preparation, there really haven't been, we didn't think about this on the front end from a business point of view. We really did. But the things that you really have to think about is, so you start off with things like line of credit. Are you going to borrow money from a bank? Are you going to fund it yourself? Because somebody has to fund the cost of running a plaintiff's personal injury practice. And you have sort of two different sets of cost. You have the cost of running the business, that is paying your rent, keeping the lights on, doing all of those types of things. And then you also have the case costs. And what do we know about case costs? Case costs aren't deductible as you go along. So that's a problem for you. And then the question becomes, in our practices, who's going to finance that? Are the partners going to invest in it, or are you going to borrow that money from someone else? We made the decision, because money is so cheap right now, that it makes sense for us to have a line of credit. Some folks, it's more difficult for them to borrow money at bank rates that are so low today. And so the thought process might be a little bit different. And what I look at with regard to our line of credit, I really don't care at any one moment how much is out on the line of credit, as long as the amount that's out on the line of credit does not exceed the amount of case costs that we have out on the street. And why is it that I look at it like that? I think that if you looked at most plaintiffs' personal injury firms, they probably recover 95 to 97% of the cost that they invest in their cases. Sometimes you might lose a trial, or you look at a case and it turns out not to be a case and you've spent some money on it. So if you know that that's true, if you keep your line of credit at 85 cents, at 85% of your case costs, you know that you are always going to be able to pay off that line of credit with those case costs when they come back in. What you don't want to do is get yourself in a position where your line of credit exceeds your case costs, because now you're going to have to pay back your line of credit with fees that are taxable. So every dollar that you're going to pay off to the line of credit, let's say you have to pay 30 cents. Well, you've already paid 40 cents on your taxes. So now you're not getting 70 cents on that dollar anymore. So that's to me, a danger zone place for a plaintiff's personal injury firm when their line of credit exceeds the amount of cost that they have out on the street. So that for me is a big one.
That's great. Jay.
Hi, Sean. I have a little question about, the precursor to setting up this firm with your partners. You talked a little bit about sitting down and having these conversations about where, how your practice is and where you think you're going to grow. Did you guys ever have any conversations about lifestyle vision that each one of you want to have? Because as you age into this practice, some people say, hey, you know what? I gave up having kids earlier in life. I want to spend more time with my kids, or I want to, travel the world on a boat 3 months a year. Did you have those types of conversations to avoid the oil and water sort of problems, as a firm could be at 15 years or 20 years into it?
Yeah, well, all three of us we're in our, gosh, I had just turned 50, so we were all in our young, right at 50 or a year or two past 50 when we came together, and so absolutely we talked about, how much longer are you looking to practice law? What is it that your goals are with regard to this 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? Where do you see yourself? Do you still see yourself coming in and working? My practice, and each of us have our own practices are different. They're complementary, but they're very different. And for me, for example, I'm on the road constantly. There is not a week that goes by that I'm not on a plane flying somewhere around the country. And so that's different than some of their practices. So I've had to learn over the course of my career how to both do management from afar, be available to my staff and to the lawyers that work on my cases from afar, and do that type of thing. And I can tell you the last 8 months or however long we are now, 6, 7 months of being locked in is not what I signed up for. I hate sitting at a desk for 8 or 10 hours a day. This is about to me, our business is about relationships, and as much as we can see each other in this sort of two-dimensional Skype or Zoom world, we want to be having dinner with our friends and developing the friendships more. So that part of it has been difficult, but absolutely, we talked about what those things are that we want to accomplish, where it is that we want to be, and you have to do that because part of that is what's our exit plan, what is the continuation plan for the firm? Do we want a firm that exists beyond us? Do we want something that when we're done just kind of folds up? So absolutely, we talked about all of those things.
You mentioned learning from other people's mistakes. Obviously, there's a big thing going on in New York with the Salino and Barnes dissolution. But did you have concrete discussions about exit plans and wrapping up the firm before you even started? Is that something that you think is wise for people who are bringing on a partner or merging practices? That's something that they should be talking about early on.
Absolutely, you need to have a plan in place how to deal with that, and very few of us are with the first firm that we ever started with. And we go into things hoping that it's going to last forever. But all of our life circumstances, they change. I know that 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer and had to go through the treatment for that. And then I had a recurrence for that. And so, you learn that whatever plans that we think that we have for life tends to laugh in our face about it. And so you have to recognize that truth. And I go back to, it is not enough to rely and say, these are my friends. You have to have it in writing, and you have to be willing to talk about it on the front end. And some people are afraid to have those hard discussions. But if you can't have a hard discussion about these important issues on the front end, what do you think is going to happen if if there's a split? And I see the biggest problems that happen in law firms is that when the split happens or somebody decides that they're going to go in a different direction, that they have contracts or they have no contract, that deals with the situations that they need to deal with. And that's where people end up hating each other. That's where the battles come in. And so who wants that?
I'm going to pivot for a little bit here. There are a lot of our listeners here have, do a lot of different things to build their practice. And one of the things I think you've done particularly well is build deep roots within AAJ. Could you sort of share with our audience here a little bit about sort of, what some of those opportunities may be for people who don't know about that? AAJ, people may know their state or local trial groups, but that AAJ has a bunch of resources out there. And as a guy who's going to be running this in a couple of years, would love to sort of have you share with them some of the things that might be out there for them.
No, absolutely. It has been such an instrumental part of the growth of my practice. And AAJ is about education, advocacy, and community. And AAJ's education is the best education that is out there. And the bang for the buck that you get is incredible, whether it's deposition colleges or what they're doing on jury research. And they're going out into the communities and bringing that education to people. So that's a tremendous asset that we have. Obviously, the advocacy part of it, where somebody's got to fight for us to make sure that Congress doesn't put us out of business. Being a plaintiff's personal injury lawyer is the only business that I can think of where we wake up every day concerned about the fact that a legislature in some state capital or the legislature in Washington, D.C. can enact a law that can put us out of business. And look at it, I do a lot of medical malpractice cases. There was a bill that was put into the Senate 2 weeks ago related to the COVID immunity that would have essentially immunized all medical cases for the next 5 years.
Wow.
And if you don't have somebody that's there with an eye on that and the ability to fight that, you can have all the great plans that you want, but you don't have a practice anymore.
So funny. It's sort of, when you think about the president, in theory, like, hearing about all these threats to our national security, that you go to sleep at night, and in theory, they and their joint chiefs are the ones that stay up worrying about it. I kind of feel like AAJ has that responsibility for trial lawyers, in the sense that, all these things are going on, and somebody has to be, Linda and her team are there to make sure that there's at least somebody shining light on them, so that we don't have those threats.
That's absolutely true, Seth. And it's incredible how hard they work. And, and it's not just looking at bills, it's also the administrative rules that are out there, which actually dwarf the amount of stuff that happens in Congress. And our people have to read every single one of those administrative things, because if you're missing an Oxford comma, it can change the whole meaning of something. And our staff just does an incredible job. The metaphor that I always use is that we are a small band of Davids against an army of Goliaths. But we always, we're able to win the battles because, one, we're right. We're right on the issues. Number two, our people are just better than their people. And when you combine those two things together, you can do great things. And Linda and her team do great things for us every day. So that's there. But then it's the community of AAJ. And it has enabled me to develop relationships with lawyers across the country, not just across the country, really across the world. And it allows me to generate more work. It allows me, no matter where it is that I might have a case, that I've got a law office that I can walk into and settle into, and somebody there that will take my call at any time. They will do whatever it is that they can do to help us. So you've got this sort of supercharged law firm that is unified across the country, where everybody realizes that your success is my success. Your failure is my failure. And that it is truly that the rising tide lifts all of our boats. I want, when another lawyer gets a $30 million verdict, I don't sit there and say, well, grumble about it and say that should be me. I say, that is incredible, because now for my clients, I get to go and advocate and tell the people that are making money decisions that this is a $30 million case. Look at what happened over here on a similar type of case. So that community all fits in with education and advocacy coming together under that relationship thing that AAJ brings to us that is so unique out there. And I know that there are other trial lawyer organizations that may have education, but they don't have as much community or advocacy, or some that may have education in community, but don't have the advocacy part of it. AAJ brings it all together and is truly representative of us. And it's been an incredible experience for me to be a member of it, to grow within it, and now to become a leader in the organization.
Awesome.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Sean. We want to appreciate your time and your insights, and really appreciate you making time for us this morning.
Thank you, guys. Great to see you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Be well.
Goodbye.
Hello, and we're back here live again. And coming out of that interview with Sean, boy, some nuggets there, Seth. But we've got somebody else up here on the screen, somebody who you spend a lot of time with. I haven't been able to see in a couple of months because we've been stuck in our homes, respectively, because of coronavirus. Normally, this time of year, we're hanging out in Las Vegas at PubCon, David. I've got David Brenton here on the line. David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So here's the question I have for you, because it's something that we have started debating in our office, and I figure if anybody knows this and knows how to handle it, it would be you. And the question is this concept of near me, right? And there was a debate in our office if we should be adding the phrase near me to basically all of our pages on our website, or if we should actually make a silo on our website that includes in the URL structure the words near me, because so many people are typing into their search, lawyer near me, a state lawyer near me, divorce lawyer near me. And so I'm wondering if that's something that has value, and I couldn't get an honest answer by looking online at all the different forums and stuff. But I know one person who actually geeks out over this stuff more than I do, and that's you. So let's talk about it and tell me what your thoughts are.
Yeah, great question. And our clients are always coming to us asking us, I want to rank higher for near me searches. What do I need to do? What do I need to do? And really the best way to think about it is to kind of take a step back and understand how Google is really interpreting a near me query. When someone's literally typing in lawyer near me, what factors and signals are they taking into consideration to again, display a search result? So when you think about it, and especially with near me searches, you end up with a lot more behavioral signals that Google is interpreting as a means for displaying a search result. And what I mean by that specifically is location is paramount. If I search, there's a lawyer literally every other block in the city. If I search lawyer near me, I'm going to pull up results usually that are within 2 to 3 blocks of my apartment. If I were to get in the car and drive across the city, run that exact same query, I would typically pull up results that are, again, within that pocket of the city. Now, Google's also interpreting behavior. They know where I live. They know I saw used Google Maps to get across the city and everything else. And because of that, you may also have a result that shows from, again, where I originally searched, or my apartment. Really a long-winded way of saying that at the end of the day, the behavior of the searcher, the location of the searcher, what they've been doing, where they go, all of these signals are getting interpreted by Google. And with near me searches in particular, those signals outweigh a lot of the traditional SEO things that you'd be able to do to again, achieve a good search result. That's not to say that having a robust local SEO strategy is not going to help you. Meaning if you have localized content, if you have local links and local signals that Google's interpreting when they're crawling the property, a robust GMB with reviews, etc. All of those things are going to help you show when someone is in an area or when their behavior indicates that you should be shown for their query. But it's a lot different than your traditional search terms. Lawyer, injury lawyer, divorce lawyer, those queries are usually going to take into consideration a lot more of those traditional SEO things that signals that we have to signal to the bot that we should be shown. But with near me queries in particular, again, the behavior of the searcher and where they are and how they're searching are much more important in Google's eyes. And that's why, to answer your question, should you put it in the URL? At the end of the day, it may help you rank local or rank organically for near me searches. It would probably, in my opinion, kind of confuse more than help. Really what you should do is be optimizing your landing page or whatever page you want to rank as much as possible with those local signals, with local links, with different local queries or terms that you can include in the content. But at the end of the day, including it in the URL is not going to help you rank locally. And again, that's part of the biggest thing to distinguish too, is there's local results and there's organic.
I have a follow-up to that, and it's something that we talked a little bit about, just started talking about the last time I saw you, and that was local content. Would you recommend, instead of using stock imagery, to have a local photographer or a local picture with the proper longitude and latitude tags in it be placed on that page or those pages, rather than use just stock photography? Or do you think that that's not necessarily a signal that that the bot might want to see?
Well, it absolutely can't hurt, and it is going to be taken into consideration as a signal. More importantly, though, is how is your markup? Is your markup all in place properly? Are you telling the bot when it crawls the property where you are and where you should be found, and do you have the content around it to be found for those terms? We can send, again, as many signals as possible. Again, imagery is great. Even geotagging photos, like you said, these are all little things that are going to help. But again, for near me searches in particular, that user behavior is going to become the most important.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jay, let's take this question a step back, right?
Okay.
Because near me, like what we're looking for is when somebody searches, right? So there are different ways people can search. They might just say Connecticut DUI lawyer. They might say Connecticut DUI lawyer near me, or they might just say DUI lawyer. And I think, Brenton, if you could sort of spend a little bit of time talking about how Google is sort of showing each of those different variations and what sort of, you have X amount of resources. How do you want to spend your time? And I think some of it, like most of our answers, always deal with depends what your competition is, depends, what the search volume is. But Brenton, could you speak a little bit to that? Because I think a lot of people struggle with, how do you come up for each of those different ones, or how do you prioritize which ones to focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, really what it comes down to was trying to show up for, again, Connecticut DUI lawyer while you're in Connecticut. And when you're in, Stamford and you're searching DUI lawyer, whether or not near me, whether or not you're going to show up. All of it comes down to the core fundamentals, though, at the end of the day. If you have localized content, like I said, with those terms specifically in it, Connecticut DUI lawyer, you're going to inherently have DUI lawyer in there. Do you need to incorporate the near me term in there? We are currently toying with this. We have it put in local, we put nearby. We've put a lot of different terms into our content to see if it's actually going to move near me rankings. Organically, it's helped a little bit. Locally, it hasn't helped at all, because again, at the end of the day, those behavioral signals are what's moving those local results. But to Seth's question, how can you show up for all of these different things? If I have a DUI lawyer page, if I have that with robust localized content for Connecticut or whatever city that I'm in, if I'm building local backlinks to it, and by that I mean local chambers, local sponsorships, getting local restaurants to link back to you, having local meetups link back to you, all of these different signals, those are inherently more valuable than, again, Jay, going back to tagging a photo or whatever it may be, because it's picking up on all of the network, if you will, of a local neighborhood and as it relates to its online presence. If it's crawling the pizza shop, if it's crawling the local baseball team, the high school, all these different things, it's going to put together that you are where you say you are, more or less. And so again, if you really want to show for all of those different terms, it's building in all of the local signals possible through link building, through content. And again, most importantly, and really importantly, is the markup, making sure your data markup is as it needs to be. If it's not marked up properly, if you're not telling the bot where you are before it crawls the property, then what are you doing?
Okay, so I know what markup is. Seth knows what markup is, but many in our audience don't know what markup is, and we've talked about it a little time. So can you give us sort of a layman's explanation of what markup is and why it matters so much?
Absolutely, yes. And Seth, you can chime in if I'm getting too technical. But really what it comes down to is markup and structured data is a language and a form of code that you can put into a property that the bot will crawl before it crawls the rest of your site. There's different forms of markup that you can have. Most importantly, you should have lawyer markup because you guys are all lawyers. You can have geo markup for where your office location is with coordinates. You can have review markup, FAQ markup, all these different things. But really at the core and in layman's terms, what you're trying to accomplish with markup is providing the bot with more information about a web page or about a company. And if you have all these different things, all these different forms of markup working together, before the bot actually crawls the site, it gets all this information. It knows what it's about to see and read. And as we've talked about before, the search bot is incredibly smart. It's picking up on even more signals than we ever thought it could. And by just giving it this information, it can help interpret the rest of the property. And that really, again, is when things start to jam more or less.
And look, I look at it this way, and we could have Brenton come back and do an entire sort of like fundamentals class on markup, for a future episode. But I would say that like one of the analogies we use a lot at BluShark is the difference between if you're looking for pizza near me, right, where Google says, hey, you don't really want one from 30 minutes away. Most likely you're looking for the fastest place that'll get you a hot piece of pizza versus, in certain other areas like lawyers, whether or not somebody is within a half mile of you may be less relevant because the courthouse is somewhere else. And the fact is you're willing to drive a little bit further for that. And I think that is where, and Brett, I'd love you to chime in a little bit on this to sort of conclude, the near me concept is almost signaling Google, while normally they're going to show you a search with an expanded radius. Brett, do you find that the near me is giving a lesser radius, which could be for some people, if my theory is correct, and would love your thoughts on it, that for a newbie who's trying to break in and there's a juggernaut in the market that owns Connecticut DUI, for example, that this gives you an opportunity to get some real estate because it's giving the ability for people to get more localized searches. What do you think about that as a differentiator?
Yeah, absolutely. Really, the concentration of lawyers is going to greatly impact the near me results. And when you think of near me results and just Google generally, they're trying to deliver the best user experience possible. Like you said, if I search Chinese food, where I am, again, like 12 Chinese restaurants are within 2 blocks here, so they're all going to show up, versus one that's halfway across the city. It's going to take 45 minutes to get there, and I'm never going to actually go. They're trying to deliver a good, positive user experience, and by doing so, again, they're going to get more engagement with the actual platform. But to your question, if you're trying to get away from a juggernaut or a high concentration of lawyers, you should be looking at where people are first and foremost, where are they actually searching from, and also kind of, again, like you said, separating yourself from a location perspective to grab that real estate that, again, you otherwise wouldn't be able to necessarily get.
Cool. Boy, that's a lot of technical stuff, but I think it sort of helps us understand the value of near me, the role of near me, and how it could play in your digital marketing. But David, I definitely want to have you back because I think schema is something that I understand a little, not as much as I would like. And I think it's something that I think maybe our viewers would like to sort of know and understand better. So maybe in the next couple of weeks we can get you back on, and we can get you out of that terrorist dungeon that looks like Seth's got you living in. I mean, there's no art on the walls. There's a single window. It looks like to me like Seth just has you chained to a radiator with a laptop, nerding out on code. But maybe we can
Yeah.
get you out of there, get you cleaned up a little, and get you in front of the cameras. That might be the way to go forward. What do you think, Seth? Think we could get him back on the show after you've
I
cleaned him
would
up
I
a little?
would bet on it. I think he's happy in his lair, and COVID's the greatest thing that's ever happened to him. He doesn't have to leave his place, and he doesn't have to deal with people.
Oh, it is for me too. I mean, people exhaust me. I can be extroverted, but I truly am an introvert. So it's awesome to be able to sit at home and do all this stuff. I'm kind of happy right now. I know Brenton, you are too. So this has been good for me. But Brenton, thank you so much for coming on the show. You really sort of helped us sort of frame an issue there, and I definitely want to have you back to talk a little bit more of this because I think it's something that our people can definitely learn from.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, so we're going to be right back after a few words from our sponsors, wrap up the show, and talk to you about what we have coming up next week. We'll see you soon here on this edition of Maximum Growth Live.
The lawyers who will succeed in the next decade are the ones who are focusing on building their brands where people meet. And there is no place better to build your brand than on social media. With the FirmFlex DIY social media plan, hundreds of lawyers like you are using social media to build their brand and become the one lawyer in their community that people know, like, and trust. By spending even just 5 minutes a day on social media marketing, you can engage with hundreds or thousands of people in your local community who will need your services. By cultivating a network of followers, you build a book of business that you can market to the next decade and beyond. If you are looking for a solution to help you jumpstart your social media marketing, look no further than the DIY plan at getfirmflex.com. The DIY was created by a small firm lawyer for people just like you, helping you connect with local people online and build your brand and engage people in the topics they want to talk about, all for under $100 a month. To find out more, visit getfirmflex.com.
In this world today, if you want to grow your business, you want to grow your firm, you want to take on more cases and make a bigger impact, you have to have a digital blueprint. Statistically, throughout the time that we've been working with BluShark Digital, our law firm, the Atlanta Divorce Law Group, grew over 1,400%.
Seth and his team have years of experience in this area.
BluShark is truly a part of the firm, so I don't consider BluShark any different than the employees in my office.
Well, Seth, that was great. Brenton's just so knowledgeable in this area. I do think you should sort of take off the handcuffs, get him away from that radiator, get him out of there, get him some sunlight maybe. But although it seems to be working, he's very knowledgeable in this area by just keeping him chained in that basement. So
I think that as long as hockey is only on TV, he'll remain there. When when they actually start playing with fans, we might see him leave the basement.
Excellent. So we've had a great show today. I mean, first off, starting with Sean, got some really interesting things, and I think that's something that some of the people in our audience, a lot of people, they have a friend, they decide to hang a shingle, but when you've been in the practice for a little while, and you're merging practices of people who've got gravitas already, there's a lot of conversations you need to have. And I'm not saying that you don't need to have those conversations when it's just you and your buddy, but I guarantee you that you and David did not have the "how does this end" conversation when you guys hung your shingle because you didn't have anything to worry about.
Exactly. And look, this is something we talk about all the time. How much do you want to paper up front? Because then you'd never do anything. You and I go back and forth with ideas. You're like, hey, I'm going to create a whole plan and system before I launch an idea. And I'm like, hey, we'll throw spaghetti at the wall. If it sticks, we'll do a plan later. Right. I feel like to a certain extent that mirrors, the sort of how we started the firm. And I think that for other people, it's really tough because, this isn't just a business idea. When you're merging two things together, and I think we touched on it with Sean, the thought is what will happen he's been around the block enough to know that law firms don't always survive forever. And that if you do have some sort of an exit out there, that it's going to give you a fighting chance. You referenced a very high profile New York breakup right now, which is, legendary. And that, some like any advanced planning would be great. At the same time, would they have had a firm if they sat down and hashed that out? Because half the time, and the thing that you touched on during the Sean interview was what do you want and what you think you want at 50 when you start a firm, or at 40 or at 35, may not be the same. That kids come, they have different, ages. You have little kids now. Sean's now an empty nester. Does that change what you want? Does it change your outlook when you've hit certain economic milestones? And so, while it's great to put all of that in writing, A, it can prevent you from moving forward, and B, things may change so dramatically. So it is one of those great questions, and I feel like the further you are in your career with the more data points, the more of a fighting chance you have to actually help come together well and figure out what would be the exit strategy at the other end. Whereas when you're starting with nothing, it's much, much harder to conceive of that.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is actually going to be, this is my homework assignment for John Fisher's mastermind tomorrow, that you and I are going to be participating in, is that, as my firm sort of is in a transition phase, as you know, my father is leaving the practice to some extent. And I'm now with other, I don't want to call them junior lawyers, but people I've brought on in the last couple of years. I've been with it for 20 years. I have to sort of define my next stage. And it's not troubling. It's just challenging, and I want to get it right so that if I do say, "Hey, I want to walk away in 10 years," there's a plan in place for me to be able to do that.
That's a whole nother concept. I feel like that isn't the concept with Sean. The question is, hey, you have partners. How do you do right by them? And if you decide you don't want to be with them, how do you divorce peacefully, like a prenup? Versus what you're talking about is a whole nother segment for another show, which is how do you make this an asset that has value that you can either minimize your own labor in or be able to spin off, et cetera. And those are some of those different pieces. We've touched on it a little bit without even, I think, knowing it, talking with Sarah Kaki about branding a firm and the idea that you're taking yourself out of it. But right now, Ruane Attorneys is you. Like, Joe Biden said the other night, the Democratic Party is me. You are Ruane Attorneys. So the value of the firm without you, does that change dramatically? It does. And so the question is, there's still value, but the question is, what are the steps if you're looking for exit plan down the road? Are there things you would do differently? And are some of those things you might do differently because it's Ruane Attorneys and you have a brand that's probably done very well, so you've made money along the way? Are you, curtailing what a potential exit would be because you're feeding your family along the way?
Yeah, there's so many things to consider. We could talk for days on these things, and I'm sure we will over the next years as we get into this. And like you said, things are going to change. My position within my firm, within my family, within my goals, all those things change, and so you need to be nimble enough to be able to do that. But we're going to end the show. It's coming up. I want to talk about a few things that we've got going on. Of course, October 15th, we have our 2021 growth hacks, the 10 growth hacks for the next year. So I want everybody to make sure that they put on their calendar to be able to attend that show live, because there's going to be some great things. We'll probably have some special guests that we've been talking to come on to talk about their hacks. So I really think that's something that's going to be awfully special. And of course, we've got our Tuesday show coming up. We've got a new segment that's going to be starting soon with Kelsey Bratcher about automation. Of course, Ryan with all his books. So we're throwing a lot of content at you, folks. Seth, I got to say, I'm really happy with where this program is going, because I think there's a lot of takeaways that anybody can get out of every show. You're getting 2, 3, 4 takeaways and stuff that you can concentrate on. What's your thoughts on that?
No, I'm enjoying it. It's we've been, again, I feel like a decade in the making. It's our late night conversations, put and seen, and the idea that we can bring all of our friends with these different expertise and passions into the mix has made for just a lot of fun content.
Yeah, and we're working already, folks. We got a bunch of DMs of people that are interested in a whiteboarding session with us, sort of a hot seat whiteboarding session. So if you're interested, make sure down below you leave your name, shoot us a DM so that we can get in touch with you, because we'd love to have you on the program, love to work through your problems, whiteboard it with you, sort of figure out how you can get to the next level, and we'll be able to help you to grow your firm. So with that, Seth, we're going to sign off. I am Jay Ruane, FirmFlex, Ruane Attorneys. He is Seth Price. I want to make sure it looks good. Seth Price over here. And Seth is with BluShark Digital, as well as Price Benowitz down in Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Virginia. And we are your hosts. So thank you so much for being with us. With that, we'll leave you now. We'll see you on Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Maximum Growth Live. Bye for now, folks.
Thank you for listening to Maximum Growth Live. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast for the latest episodes and tune in live on Facebook every Thursday for our live show. For more information, visit Maximum Growth Live on Facebook or MaximumLawyer.com, and be sure to share us with your friends.